Welcome to the Financial Game Plan with Hannah. My name is Hannah Bursaday, and I'm your host for the Financial Game Plan with Hannah. Today, I have Courtney Fricke with me, and I'm super excited. I'll see her all over Facebook. For all of our listeners out there, can you tell me who you are, how you got into real estate? What do you do that makes you Courtney Fricke?
Sure. So I like to think of myself as an everyday individual person. I got started just about 10 years ago. My background's in the nonprofit mission sector. So I was living overseas working in the nonprofit sector, moved back, had stumbled my way into a job, a property management job here in the New Orleans area. And that job where I did an asset turnaround, but I didn't know that's what I was doing, changed my life. Someone, a mentor who was, one of my tenants at the marina I managed said, Courtney, you don't realize what you just did for this company by turning a failing asset around and making it performing. And ultimately, he said, if you can figure out how to do this for yourself, you'll become very wealthy. And so I started off flipping, which is on a small scale, taking a bad asset, turning it around, right? I added in wholesaling, grew one of the largest wholesale companies in the Southeast Louisiana area. I was doing all that. I'd left the property management job, but it was not providing the peace and freedom I was looking for, that financial freedom. It was
Yes.
heavy on the grind, light on the freedom. So I started holding rentals, but to do that, I had to learn how to get access to capital. Short-term capital for flips and stuff like that was easy. So I learned how to do two things. I learned how to buy with creative financing. So that's using the seller or their existing financing in place. And then I also learned how to raise private money from everyday people to fund my rentals. So long-term money from everyday individual people. And that is mostly what I do these days, is buying things with creative financing or with private money, mostly rentals. Sometimes I relapse into like a flip or a wholesale deal. And then sometimes I sell things on terms as well.
That's amazing. You have kind of dabbled in several different areas, which is great because it teaches you different ways. My biggest thing with, I named this podcast the Financial Game Plan with Hannah because I feel like real estate is a game and that game is ever evolving. When my husband Brad and I, when we started this, we bought new construction homes straight off the MLS. It was torture paying, conventional mortgage, all that 20% down payments kind of stuff. But it made sense because the interest rates were 2% and 3%, back in COVID, it just made sense. But then all of a sudden it didn't make sense any longer. And then we had to move into partnerships to be able to buy our apartment complex. And now I'm looking at selling that apartment complex to creative financing. It is a game that is ever evolving. And you are so lucky. You kind of stepped into this and done so many different things. Question: how was your experience with the property management, like being the person to do the dirty work? How was that experience?
It's the reason why I don't manage my own property. I stumbled into a real estate job solely because it was a salary with benefits. And I was coming from a place where I didn't have that, right? Something that's really important with that was it was a means to an end. But during that time, I learned a skill set. And so a lot of times people have that, means to end job, right?
Right.
But it taught me a valuable skill set. So I mean, it was wild. I mean, it was a marina owned by an apartment complex corporation that was out of state, and it was their only marina. So everything was like the redheaded stepchild of like, all right, Courtney, company just sent out XYZ, but doesn't apply to you. Go figure it out. Like,
Wow.
um,
That's difficult.
yeah, it was. I jokingly said, a little bit more of my story though, and I've shared it many times on many podcasts, but the first day I took the job, I went as assistant manager, knowing that the manager had cancer, and day one he went into ICU and died.
Oh my God. That's
it,
horrific.
it was traumatic, and the guy from corporate looked at me and said, that was your training manual. Like, because they had no other marina. And so they were just like, figure it out. So I like to joke that I was, I adopted a mute child type of thing, where I had to go figure out what to do. I had to go figure out all these things. And so at the end of the day, I learned how valuable management is, but I also learned that bad management can kill an asset. I mean, I took over that marina at 40% occupied, 1-star reviews on all the sites that mattered. And they sold the company sold the apartments, but could not sell the marina because it was not performing. And so in hindsight, it's a strong reminder that the asset is the team, the asset is the tenant. It is not always the building. It's rarely, let me say that, it's rarely the building. It's always the team and how they perform, and the tenant and how, either good or bad the tenant is.
That's a powerful piece of information. People seem to want the sexy, glorious building, but like you're saying, it's really the team, it's the managers, it's the maintenance crew, it's the landscaping. This this sport is a team game. You have to work with other people, but the fact that you were able to do this is that's marvelous. You should be so proud of yourself. That's really cool. That's really, really cool. Question: what types of properties do you like to purchase now?
I have considered myself historically agnostic toward property type. Pride myself in being a deal maker.
Okay.
Deal. So I have done everything from commercial mobile home parks, RV parks, small apartment complexes, doubles, fourplexes. I've done house packages of single family. I've done just a trailer on land, small land, like all of those things, right? And I kind of I didn't specialize. And for the majority of the last 10 years, I have not specialized, but I can tell you right now, I still don't specialize, but what is going into my legacy portfolio, I'm very specific on what that looks like now, which
Okay.
I want nice houses in nice neighborhoods that basically I'm getting away from, like, obviously hood properties, like older
Hmm.
house stock. So like, for example, I have bought numerous properties, with creative financing that are a 2008 build or 2010 build, and they're 3-bed, 2-bath, 2-car garage in a good neighborhood, worth 250, worth, whatever. So not these lower income properties. But so I'm generally looking for, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to trade up the value of my long-term portfolio.
Right.
But my ideal portfolio is single family. The stuff that I have, my mobile home parks, I just bought another small one. And my mobile home parks, that is, I bring partners on those. I'm not looking to, number one, I don't think I want them forever. If I do, I want shared responsibility. But my forever portfolio, what will retire me is going to be nice houses in nice neighborhoods. And the more I can trade them up, the idea is I want the land to be a significant percentage of of the house's value.
That makes sense. Absolutely. Can you, for all of our listeners who do not know or understand what creative financing is, can you give us the Courtney crash course into this?
Yeah, like I explained earlier, it is literally using either the seller, or I utilize their existing financing in place. So all of these 2, 3, 4, 5% loans that we can't go replicate, what I'm doing, I walked one earlier today, that it's looking like it's going to be another one where I said, hey, send me your most recent statement. They had a 4.125% interest, which it's not the lowest of the low, but I can't go
But
replicate.
you can't find that right now.
And so, so pretty much I'm using either seller or their existing financing to then curtail not having to go to the bank. I don't know what my credit score is because I don't use my credit score. I know it's good. Like, so there's a level there, but it's like, I don't use my credit score. I don't use, my W-2 or my bank statement or my, tax returns or any of that stuff, right?
Right.
It's more so I buy with credibility, not with credit.
Do you think creative financing, there's a big theory out there right now with interest rates being where they are, inflation being where it's are, an election coming up, we have a lot of factors, right? Do you
Sure.
think creative financing is going to be something that we're going to see a lot of, or do you think people are a little scared of it? What are your thoughts on that?
I mentioned earlier that I just got back from a conference.
You did?
My mentors, I frequently say I like to get around what I respectfully call the gray-haired guys. And gals, there are some gals in that factor, but there are people who've been investing. So one of my biggest mentors, Pete, this weekend was in Ohio. So I went to go spend, the last 4 or 5 days with him. Pete's been investing since 1965. I've been investing for 10 years. I have not
Right.
invested in a down market. So what do? I cling to these guys. Another one, Leon, he's been investing since 1975. Like I say, well, what did tell me what you saw, right? So I can't speak to what I think will happen. What I'm clinging to is those who have been through it before and what got them through turbulent times, as turbulent as the 70s into the 80s, where there are 18% interest rate, right?
Right.
Those really crazy times, right? I mean, one of them, Leon, he was a broker in Missouri. He now lives in Mississippi near us. He had 75, agents underneath him. At that time, doing retail deals, half of the deals he was doing in the 70s was selling them subject to their existing loan on the
Huh.
retail market, because he would have a seller looking to sell, but they couldn't sell because buyers were frozen because they had a 15% loan that they would be, it was
Right.
it was strangling them, right? But he'd have a seller with a 7% loan. So that buyer would buy the property subject to that loan, and then the rest of the equity, they would make them a seller financing second, that they would make payments to them for the balance. And he said, Courtney, I can't tell you, like, he's like, half of every deal, like every, like 1 to 2 deals we're doing one of them where it's, going the traditional route, but then we were selling with creative financing. In every tough market, creative financing is king. Yesterday on NOLA.com, there was an article that just came out talking about the state of the market, crazy insurance rates, interest rates. Literally, there was a quote that said, creativity is king in this market.
That's a great quote. It's amazing how, like you said, you haven't been in a down market. I've only been investing for a couple of years, so I've only been in the like super happy times. And it's interesting that you also brought up the gray-haired men, because I feel like in real estate, it is almost always older white men who run the things. And
Yep.
it's wonderful to see different groupings of people, genders, colors, pick whatever you want to call it. I love to see all the difference, but everyone sees something differently too. And I think that's quite amazing. I have another question for you. And this question actually might be a little tough, because I know that you said you don't have a specific thing that you buy for. You're a numbers person. You want the deal to work. Are there certain things you're like, absolutely, I'm not touching it, like certain areas of New Orleans or parts of the state, or what are things that you don't want?
I sat at a seller's table today and told them, because I presented 2 or 3 different deals to them, offers to them. And I said, I'm doing this one, I want to make sure you understand them, because at the end of the day, what I don't want to do is tell you, no, I can't buy your house. I'm just going to tell you how I will. There's a level there. I have cured crazy title issues. I like a challenge. It's almost something I had to talk to my therapist about, so there's a level here that there's a lot that I like to take on. If it is a business, though, I am less interested in businesses, and there's real estate tied to businesses. I am more interested in investment. So if it has a business model tied to it, Airbnb, RV park, hotel, I've been under contract with all 3. The reality is if I'm going to do that, I'm going to bring in operating partners, and maybe my role would be to find the deal, structure the deal, raise the money or something like that. But I don't want an operating role. And the other thing I'll say this is, so when it comes to those, I'm very picky. If I don't have an operator that I have already vetted, which I've
Okay.
been doing for years, is kind of keep my eye on a handful of operators that I think would be a good role for that. I'm not interested in jumping into basically new distractions, right? I like the old and boring, because it has been consistently successful. If it's something like that, I'll bring on a partner. Or I'm pretty much South Louisiana, South Mississippi. My buy box does have, parishes and counties tied to it.
Mhm.
I had a deal last year I was working that was 3 mobile home parks in Indiana. And I could have structured a great deal. And I was even looking at some operators up there, but the entire time I did not like that I could, within an hour go drive to
You
it.
can't. That seems to be a kicker for a lot of people.
And I'm too tactile with that. So what I might do is do a deal like that, and then maybe try to trade my position out of it to get something that I want, because I'm not afraid to get into something that I like less, if I believe it can become a currency for something I like more. Not to be deep in the weeds, it is an old school way of doing things. And it's just idea of it's take a 1031 exchange.
Right.
When you trade up properties, that is like the cheapest version of this concept, but it's the idea of I'm not afraid of getting into a deal that I like less. For example, all of the deals I do today that are not those nice houses and nice neighborhoods, those are deals that I'm doing. I like them less, but I'm doing them as a means to an end to get what I like more. So maybe their sole job, like for example, I will buy a house that doesn't fit that criteria and I will sell it maybe on a lease option or a bond for deed land contract. And that's property's sole role is to maybe fund my reserves, right? So it's a means to an end. So I'm not afraid of getting into deals if I feel that they can be used as a currency to get me closer to what I want.
I love that mentality and that thought process. I think a lot of people are afraid to do something that they don't think will instantly make them money or instantly make them happy. But I like that you have a whole plan surrounding that. Do you have any tips for people who are wanting to get into the not quite syndication yet, but I mean, more of how to get funding, how to get private funding, how to talk to people? How do you do that? It's daunting to walk up to a group of people and start a conversation, which eventually leads to a relationship. You're like, hey, I need 50 grand. How do you do that?
I think it all boils down to people liking, knowing, and trusting you, but also seeing you active in the business. I have never had someone who was like a stranger who's like, I want to lend you money. Even the SEC is like, you should probably have 45 days of relationship, existing, right? So a huge part of that is, I mean, I have had sellers of properties that I've wholesaled become some of my largest private money lenders. I have had, realtors become lenders, right? Like I have had business owners. So there is number one, an avatar, but know that it does not come from, hey, Courtney, who do you use as your private money lender? Can, they lend to me? It's not going to happen that way. It's, are you getting out there and talking with people? Do people see you actively in this business? Because at the end of the day, they want to know that someone's trustworthy and competent. They might know you because they're, a family friend so they trust you. But the question is, are you competent? Because if you trust someone, but they're not competent, are you going to lend your money to them? You're potentially life savings. The other part of that is you might be competent, but if you're not trustworthy, so, I mean, that's why social media can be powerful, right? Going to local meetups. I've met many, many private money lenders who said, hey, I don't want to go do what you do, Courtney. Or, hey, Courtney, I don't find the deals like you find, but I want a piece of the benefit, right? So that all boils down to how good are you at building allies? So I've got a private money lender right now who will lend money to me. But at the end of the day, I'm saying, hey, I know you make XYZ, like we've talked about it. He has a high income. Do you need tax benefits? Zig Ziglar said it best. You can have everything you want in life if you help enough people get what they want. So maybe I can structure a deal. And this is where I'm confident and I feel competent as a deal maker or a student to go learn how to do it, is I could structure a deal to give him all the tax benefits. My mentor, Pete, has this house. And in the house, there's like 8 sections. So you're teachers, it's a graphic, but it's called the benefits house. And I have it printed large and I usually keep it so that when I'm in my office and I'm negotiating, what do I do? Whether it's with a private money lender or a seller, I look at that sign and I say, what benefits do they need? Because what's left, and in the benefits house, it's Peach Fortunato's benefit house. It has like profit, tax benefits, cash flow, amortization, use, there's different things like that. So like with a tenant, we're generally, saying I'll trade you use for, cash flow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Partners like private money lenders generally want profit, right? Or some of them want cash flow, right?
Right.
But what if some of them, what they really need is that tax benefit? So when I look at that, how good of an ally are you? Right? Is it, let me take everything that I can? People might do some deals with but I mean, there's a level that people will buy into your vision with how much, you tune into what's in it for them, right? Like you tune into that station to say, hey, how can I help them get more of what they need in life? I've got, and I'll kind of land my thought here, but have you ever heard of a self-directed IRA?
Yes.
Like a solo 401k. I have helped at this point maybe more than 10 people create them because maybe they have an old IRA somewhere from a job or something that they're no longer at. Create them to start lending on my deals, right? So I've created lenders solely because they said, hey, Courtney, I am looking to have XYZ in my retirement account. I have literally built individual plans with allies, friends that saying, hey, look, let's get them going and we will start growing it. How long do you have? Okay, let's talk about how we can grow it to what you need it to be so that your family can have a greater sense of security down the road for your retirement. Because maybe that friend doesn't come across the deals I do and cannot partake in the benefits of the deals I come across. Or maybe that friend is not as competent of a deal maker and doesn't want to go learn to become one. So what do? There's been times I've shared 30, 40, 50% of the profit of a flip to help an ally that he turns around and lends that profit right back to me for my next deal. Right. So like there's a win-win there.
Okay. There's like several things I want to talk about that you just brought up. First, if you come across that chart, can you please send me a copy? Because I want to put that in my office.
So I'll send it to you, but you can Google it though.
You said Pete, who is it?
Pete Fortunato, the
Pete
benefit.
Fortunato. I am going to find it when this is over. That sounds amazing. I have just been recently introduced to the fact that it's not really how people are helping you, it's how you can help other people. And there's way stronger of a chance for them to help you if, oh, wait, tax benefits. That's a big thing. I love it. How do you keep up with market trends? What do you look at? And I know that your area that you like is a little bit specific, but what do you do to keep up with the market trends?
So a friend turned me on to Twitter solely for macroeconomics. So there's a handful of people that I follow. I'm not trying to predict the market trends. So there's a level there that there are some people that I follow to listen to. Obviously I look at things like Fred, like the Federal Reserve out of like St. Louis and things like that put out data. There's a handful of meetups that are within an hour of me each way. Obviously you and I met at the ones up in Baton Rouge, right? An hour.
Ma'am.
I go to Mississippi, an hour from my home, because I own properties in all of those areas, or I'm looking to in Baton Rouge. So that's a new market for me. What I do is I want to go know the players who are doing volume. For example, my friend Dominique, who's over in the South Shore of New Orleans in the West Bank, she flips 10 to 15 houses at a time in New Orleans, right? In a very specific part. Her and I stay in touch. And I'm like, hey, how are your deals doing? For every one that gets a bit like right now, she literally just told me, hey, for every one that gets a bidding war, 2 of them sit on the market for 4 weeks.
Wow.
And it's like, and she's in that sub 200,000 mark, right? Market. And so by hanging out with people, they don't have to be the top dogs, but go hang out with people who are in the trenches, because every report I like to read, like Adam, ATTOM, Data Solutions, they're like a data company about foreclosures. I've been working foreclosures for 10 years. I get those into my email. And so I watch those things. But more than that, I go hang out with people who are in the trenches and saying, what are you seeing?
I didn't know about Twitter with the macroeconomics thing. I have a Twitter account, don't use it a whole lot, but I'm gonna have to start looking into that. Contacting the people in the trenches, like you talked about, I think it's super important. I know you brought up the local meetups, and that's, I think, the second time you've talked about it. I am very passionate about local meetups. There's 2 specifically I go to every single month, pretty much without fail. I want to start branching out more towards the West Bank. I know where y'all are. I've been wanting to do that. How do you feel about, I know you like the local meetups. How do you feel about them with the networking aspect? How has that evolved in your journey?
So I started one. Years ago when the ones that were in the area just weren't cutting the bill for me. Holding your business card, someone else's business card from earlier, holding your business cards like this, you think by osmosis, you then create allies, you create relationships, and people get to know you. That doesn't happen. So what I'm looking for is on the networking side is I want to get to know people. Talk to me about what you're doing. Hey, talk to me about what you're trying to get into. Talk to me about, hey, how can I help you? So for me, I like it when there's a solid mixture of both education and that. I love afterwards, like for the West Bank and mine, like a lot of times when we go afterwards for the meeting after the meeting to another
Mhm.
restaurant or something, I don't do well staying up past 10 p.m. But on those nights, I sleep in late because for me, it's belly to belly. It's, hey, I want to get to know you, like you, and trust you. And it's, I think our role and our duty, which is something that Pete's taught me. He's been one of my top influence. He said, Courtney, your role is to ask for help and find out how to help other people. That is your sole role, right? And so at those meetups, it's so important to not just let me pass out 300. The metric shouldn't be 300 cards passed out. It is, let me talk with a handful of people and find out how I can help 5 people. Let me, hey, maybe it's like, let's go have coffee next week because maybe we can talk about how I can help, maybe move a deal that's just sitting stagnant for them and it's hurting their entire business.
So meetups are important. Networking is important, but it's more of the quality over the quantity when meeting these individuals. I know that this business is a relationships business. I want to ask you about the relationships you have built inside of your portfolio, your journey, everything that you do. Who are the people on your team? Like contractors, electricians, plumbers, like what does your team look like?
So I scaled down during COVID. So when I
Okay.
built a pretty large wholesale company, I had a lot of mostly 1099 people who, acquisition specialists, dispo, I had a land division, I had a lot of things like that. COVID, a courthouse runner, I had all that stuff. COVID, I scaled back. So now I have some handymen that will do work for me, but I don't do rehabs more than 20 grand. So
Okay.
if I do, if I come across that, I'll wholesale it, right? But I have a few people who I own property with, so partners. So I have my own portfolio and then I have a few partners. I've got um I've got some that is from the mobile home parks. So they're operators for multifamily and things along those lines. We will handle the community aspect of those parks and stuff. Um, One of them is going to, be a guest on here later on, but Aussie Steve, he has a very large wholesaling company, and we would co-wholesale together. And but one of those appointments, I just told him, I said, look, we'll be stupid to not to wholesale this. And I liked him enough. He was becoming one of my closest friends in the industry. I said, I like you enough that I would, own these with you. This guy will finance these. It was a portfolio of houses. I said, this guy will finance these to us and it'll be a good deal. So some of it's partnerships, some of it, is that I still have a courthouse runner. So helps me, pull data from the courthouse. But honestly, most of my team, it's a handful of attorneys, about 6 or 7 different attorneys, where I close my different creative deals with. Because a lot of my deals, I have to also do a succession or I'm solving some sort of title issue. One of the deals I closed earlier this year, when I acquired it, most of last year, I was sitting under contract because I had to pay for all the legal fees while we went to the courts to solve the title. And I was happy to do it. But I got the deal because I had an attorney who could help me solve this specific title issue, which took 8 months to resolve in the courts. But it was okay. I got a great deal for it, and it was a win-win for everyone involved, right? So I do have a handful of handymen that I deployed to handle things. And then I have, at this point, I want to say 4 property managers, but I did just fire one. So I'm looking for another. And then I am trying to go buy in Baton Rouge. So I have been interviewing property managers out there because I am looking to buy out there as well. And so it's mostly service providers, right? Handymen, title companies, attorneys that specialize in certain things, property managers. There's a handful of various different realtors that I'll use, real estate agents that I use for different reasons in different areas. But it's hard to say who my team is because, well, I have a lot of allies, and those allies can make the family feel big.
That's a great way to put it. We're currently working on building our team, but I think I like the word that you're using better as allies. I think that makes it significantly stronger. Tell me more about wanting to come into Baton Rouge. Are you earlier? I know you said you don't have something specific. Are you looking for anything in Baton Rouge, or are you just again looking for the deals?
So when I moved to Mississippi, I'm going to tell you why I moved to Mississippi because it's a similar reason why I moved to Baton Rouge. So I was building a portfolio in the Northshore so the suburbs of New Orleans. Then I started buying in New Orleans, but then COVID happened and the state by state regulation was tough. I started looking in Mississippi. My parents are from Mississippi. It's an hour away. So I bought 31 properties in my first purchase, and it was a portfolio. It helped me jump into that market. And so it was a mixture of like a mobile home park and some stuff, some single families, a laundromat, some land, some stuff like that, all from a guy who wanted to exit. Funny enough, from Baton Rouge. I thought I could build quicker allies because I had volume. That has not been without struggle. Do I want to buy a portfolio in Baton Rouge? Yes. I think I would be better served doing that strategy there. Mississippi is a whole different game, so we're learning that. So I am looking for portfolios. I'm working on even those single families. So I will take single families. I don't know if I'm going to buy a ton in the hood unless it's like, 50 in the hood that I could use that and then eventually trade up.
Courtney, you have been amazing so far. Are you ready to answer my final 3 questions?
I am. Bring it on.
Okay, so my first one is, within the next year, what is something on your bucket list that you would like to accomplish?
Sure. I absolutely want to sit my butt in a chair and write the book that I've been wanting to write.
What do you want to write a book about, if you don't mind me asking?
So a pretty big goal of mine is to compete with Kiyosaki. I don't know if I said this on podcast before. I want to compete with Kiyosaki with how many books I would write. Because I don't know how many, but
a lot.
Yeah, he has a lot. So it's not necessarily that I have one burning message in me. It's I'd love to write. I used to be a freelance writer, and so I'd love to write on various topics. And so there is 1 or 2 that I have on my mind. So like I want to take the easiest one and kind of just start knocking it out. And the idea of it to be part workbook, not workbook like fill in the blank, but workbook like almost like a manual.
I love it.
Just a book.
That's amazing. You write that book, you let me know, and I will buy your first copy. But I do want it signed, just, being honest. Second question. What is a skill that you have always wanted to learn?
I wish I could learn how to play the guitar. I tried once, and I really, really, fun fact, struggle with multitasking.
Would never have imagined that with you because you're here, there, and rocking it. Last question. If you could go back into time and talk to your 18-year-old self, what would you say?
That there's still time to be surprised. Like life has surprises coming for you.
Courtney, you have been amazing. I loved your answer. I love everything that you have told me. I genuinely appreciate your time. And I love that you, on top of wanting to make money, this is a business. We all need to make money, but you want to give back. I think that's something very, very special. And not many people want to do that. I wish you the very best of luck with your books, with spreading your word, planting that seed and growing other people in this business, because anyone can do that. I genuinely believe that anybody can do this. You have been amazing. Thank you so much. If you enjoy this podcast, please like, follow, subscribe, and leave me a 5-star review. I would love to continue doing this. And you guys giving me that positive feedback really makes my heart happy and lets me continue to do what I enjoy. Thanks so much, guys. I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.